Welcome to this week's episode of the Drivetime Podcast. I'm joined by Oana Beattie, who is the Vice President of Data and AI for Kyndryl. Welcome, Oana. I cannot wait to get into this episode with you. So welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Oana, VP of Data and AI, massive job title, because AI is the hot topic right now for everybody. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on the show is that you have been involved with AI since its really early inception, before it was released to everybody else. And I was just fascinated about your experience and your journey. And also because you work across many industries. And I think in automotive, we tend to learn more from what other people are doing and how we then adopt it. So I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. So tell me a little bit about your job, what you're doing now, and then kind of how on earth did you end up doing that?
Well, my current role entails me advising the world's leaders, global organizations across sectors. So think banking and insurance, wealth and assets management, public sector, university education, retail, on transforming the way in which they run their businesses with data and AI at the heart. And it sounds easier than it actually is in practice. But yeah, I cover both data and AI, and I love that about my role, because hopefully as we discuss today, you will see that you can't decouple them. To use AI and make the most and to drive the most value out of it, you have to have the base data or access to reach correct and, really well curated data. But that's kind of what I do. I do data and AI transformation, and it could be anything from large scale, think about 5 years transformational programs, to something that's short, sweet, 6 to 8 months, maybe a bit of a solution or something quite unique and quirky that an organization can use, but to drive specific value in their sector.
Yeah. So just coming back to, you mentioned that, and this is the really interesting point I think we hear a lot of, AI won't work without data. You cannot decouple them. So having a data strategy first is kind of the foundational steps of whatever you then bring next in terms of technology. So did you start with data? Sort of, how did you kind of get into this?
Oh, I love that question. I actually started quite early on. I've started with, I have a background in computer engineering. So I have a baccalaureate degree in that, and I specialized in the engineering side of computing. And then when I started my career, it was all about data, information, insights, number, operationals, like how long is a agent spending on the phone with a customer, and why do some agents spend 2 minutes and some spend 6, and which ones are more impactful and why. And then before that, it expanded into machine learning models, so built on rich data, but trying to drive a lot of maybe pricing or customer segmentation or market intelligence. So I evolved from a little bit of computer engineering into data and data analysis, then management information, then business intelligence, then machine learning, and eventually transition into artificial intelligence for the last maybe 8 years now.
So just coming back then, I mean, just with a simple use case of, we want to know what's more successful, the person spending 2 minutes on the phone versus the person spending 6 minutes on the phone. What's happening in each of those situations? Mm-hmm. And then what will lead to an outcome of, yes, that person converted a customer, that person didn't convert a customer. Mm-hmm. I know I'll be on the phone for 6 minutes because I like a good chat. It's my Irish background. But sometimes, I mean, we used to listen back in the day so my first ever job was telephone sales. Mm-hmm. We used to track every phone call that we would make, every outbound, and we had a piece of paper.
You would audit it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'd tick, did I present to that client? Did I pitch? So we would have a metric by which you said, if you discuss size, price, make an attempt to close, then it's a pitch. If you didn't do those things, it wasn't a pitch. Mm-hmm. And then you would then work out what was your conversion rate from outbounds to pitches, from pitches to sales. Mm-hmm. And we would do it manually, because that was obviously how we had to do it, because we didn't have...
Can't imagine it.
I know, it's so old. But we didn't have computers that would do it. So I then would run the team, and I would then look at what their performance, and you could see from like rookies through to more experience, the conversion rate would literally improve every month because they would get better at closing or asking better questions or, building better relationships. So it was really interesting how we started to track impact, but it was very, very manual. So thinking about how you've then said, so your background in computer engineering, you've come to this from an engineering background, which is great. And just personally, I think it's amazing to see more women going into engineering and following STEM. So we do a lot of work to try and encourage more
diversity in STEM.
Absolutely right, because girls can do maths too. And so I think it's a really powerful example to set that you can start in computer engineering and actually you're curious about data and what comes next. Mm-hmm. So just walk me through, you've gone from looking at the very early use case of let's just see how something works from this person to that person.
Yeah.
And then you go from that all the way to machine learning, which is, so I think there's lots of ways that mirror what happens in automotive. We have people making outbound calls, people dealing with customers coming in, and some of these things are going to start to be replaced by automation, machine learning, and then ultimately AI. So I think it's understanding how we can walk through the steps that will happen in this space and also what you've taken from your own experiences.
Well, I'll take you through my early journey and then I will use an example of how the journey is today, because when I was doing all this sort of analysis was about 15 years ago, where systems were fragmented, data was fragmented. We had so many silos in the way in which organizations were even structured or communicated or shared their knowledge, let alone their data. So the first question for me was always what is the outcome that I want to achieve? Or what is the outcome that my business leader wants to achieve? So if the outcome was, let's call it agents, right? So call agents' ability to convert and optimizing that, then my question was about the process. So let's analyze the process end to end, how it is today, how many systems does a call agent have to interact with, where do you store your data, your call logs, your system data. Can we actually bring this insight, the voice data as well as the system data together, and do this separate data points tell us a more cohesive story? And then we used to say, okay, you call center team leader or line manager, can you tell me who are your high performers? And we would go and shadow them and do a study, and we would have a blueprint for what good looks like, and tell us the ones that cause you a little bit of friction, that need uplift, and we listen to them. Mm-hmm. But not just listen, behaviorally analyze why are they taking long, or why aren't they asking the questions? So it was all about getting the data, but also getting, sometimes there's knowledge that the team leader has that doesn't sit in any of the data platform. They instinctively know what good looks like, but they haven't documented that blueprint. So I would create this data persona, the good blueprint persona. And then I would build, in early days, would be called data analytics models that would say, okay, how many complaints calls or sales calls or service calls did we have? What were the major themes, and who were the agents, and how did how complex were they? Because you have a pattern, like a script. And usually if it sticks to a certain type of script, everybody averages the same sort of call, the same sort of behavior. Mm. As soon as there is something that's unique about the call, something that's more circumstantial, the call then changes trajectory. And because you don't have a defined path, people can go, they don't know, so they're winging it. And then my job was to actually start codifying that, what good looks like in those unique scenarios and unique circumstances, and then monitor the data and see, have we actually converted more? Have we reduced operational cost because now we have more of these examples in the library of an agent? And can we use that to train better, to empower better? So think sentiment analysis and customer NPSs. So suddenly you didn't have just two data sources. You had a customer NPS and you have an external benchmarking. So it was about enhancing the richness of the data. So it was all about data analysis. but it was always retrospective. You look back and then you're trying to project trends and volume of calls and how much staff do I have and do I need to temporarily go and uplift the staff, what sort of skills. But I got super excited about how about predicting stuff or finding insights that we don't even know that are there. So data correlation. And I started playing with machine learning models that will tell me stuff that I didn't know, little connections between data that I didn't sense, and its behavioral patterns, both in agents or in customers. And I would start to predict a trend. I was like, ooh, there's something in the pricing of this product that's not right, because there's many, like over the last 2 weeks, we had X number of new complaints emerging and nobody knows how to deal with that. So let's quickly, proactively help our agents to do that. But let's speak with pricing and underwriting teams or whatever to help understand what's underneath the hood of that. Why are our customers dissatisfied? And that's where I become far more impactful to the organizations that I was working for with these machine learning models. And imagine that then multiplied across all sorts of value chains, claims and service and marketing and pricing and,
So it's more than just ones and zeros. You've kind of got the context behind it. So what you've described there is, and I love that you need to look back. We used to learn much more from the verbatim comments than the scores. You can't do anything with ones and zeros. You need to know what's driving me to score in that way? Yeah. Why are you scoring high or particularly low? And we would look at top box or bottom box scores, so 9 or 10s, what was really driving delight, but what was also really driving dissatisfaction. So you can start to understand, oh, I really hated it because Bob never called me back, or whatever the thing is, or, I wait too long, or the pricing was too high, but it's having the context to know then how you can start to predict. So I think, it's a whole new area, isn't it, of I'm just learning how to manage what's driving people's satisfaction. And now I'm trying to look at how do I predict where to place my e-commerce SKUs or what to do next. So as you're going through, you mentioned a couple of sectors are major sectors that really influence consumer expectation, because we all use online banking, we all use health services, we all use insurance. And I think actually what we're trying to learn in automotive is what's the best of what's going on everywhere else. And we are still navigating our way out of silos, if I'm really honest with you. Mm-hmm. And we still have this manufacturers build things, retailers sell things. But in some cases in our world, manufacturers also want to sell things and manage the customer relationship. But that requires an awful lot of either automation or of humans. And I think
regional knowledge, right? Yeah. Because customer behavior is not flat across countries or across regions or even across like towns. So for a manufacturer that is based in a remote geolocation, to get that nuance of regional customer behaviors and patterns would be very hard to bottle unless you have masses of data that's been accumulated by regional dealers over X amount of years, and you're putting them together at scale. I'm not sure that they will be able to optimize that nuances.
I don't think we're ready yet, for sure. I think you're absolutely right there. So we have the same. We have, language translations and different, we have localization teams that just take our data integration points and localize them in a different market, because we have taxation and everything else. It's different market by market. And you're right, in certain countries, region by region within those countries, particularly somewhere like the States, you've got very huge differences between behaviours of states. So it's a really fascinating thing. So just coming back to those topics of other industries, who do you think moved the needle more quickly in terms of how they manage data? Who did it really well as you were working through them?
I think it becomes a little bit obvious to say that the early adoption, so the organizations that were leading in the world of selling on the World Wide Web. So I don't want to promote any brand specifically, but I'll give you some examples. But I just want to say that they're limited to that. So think about Amazon's, right? Think about scaling their business. Think about their ability to understand buying patterns of customers' behaviors to recommend adjacent products and services. They were very early adoptions of moving their business online, and because they've gone through the pain of that and to that transformational, they transformed the way in which they were operating. They were in the sweet spot to now actually infuse AI and digital services, but they do it with the outcome and the customer at the heart, the customer experience at the heart. And there's plenty of examples, but I think some leading retailers early days are innovating. And I also think a lot of the fintechs, there are a lot of companies, even in banking, that are disrupting a whole sectors, and they are taking and growing huge market share because they don't have legacy. They don't have to deal with legacy data, legacy systems, legacy platforms and technology. And they started cloud native, digital native. And again, everything that they design, it's with the customer outcome at the heart. And they don't do silo journeys. They don't think about, I'm going to sell, so let me design a sales product. They go, I'm going to service a customer in this particular way. And they cut through end-to-end horizontals.
Yeah.
So, there are a few that do that they design their whole operations in that way.
I love that. I think I don't want to sell, I want to serve as a customer in a certain way. That is really powerful to think about it like that. And you're right. So Amazon, I think Jeff Bezos is often interviewed as saying, we want it to be customer obsessed.
Exactly.
And actually, you're right, they've kind of then built on adjacencies around just selling books.
But it's all about delighting the customer, making it easy to click on a button and to get something done without having the pain of submitting forms or payment history, or it's customer journey and customer behaviors, understanding this need for nowadays one-click solution.
Yeah.
I don't want to go in 7 fragmented apps to design the car that I want. I don't want them to go to another app because you sold me insurance, Mr. Dealer, and it's a third-party insurance on a different app. I work with you, my relationship, and I'm invested in you. So why don't you create your own platform and I come to one hub and all my services and all my solutions and everything is through you, via you, and you take the pain and you coordinate it and streamline it. If dealers were thinking that way and not about that customer interaction to we are the customer hub, they need to come on our app, on our platform, and be guided through a frictionless, pain-free sort of digital journey. I think that would be on something.
Wouldn't that be great? Because we used to have this sort of thing where you go, what happens now? So your one-click metaphor is great. I don't want to have to go on many different apps. So when I spent some time with Auto Trader, and I learned they went from print to digital. So they went through a huge transformation of they could see where the customer journey was heading, and it was not looking at black and white print.
No.
It was looking at something on my phone that I could find by location within 20 miles of where I am.
Exactly.
By this price point. So it solved the customer's ability. So it's like obviously Auto Trader was mirroring what Amazon were doing, but it just for cars. But it really, what we tried to do was just look at what can we do in less clicks? How do we make it? So I learned all about lean. What does lean mean? I had no idea what that meant, but and we speak to dealers now and we say, well, look at your whole experience now, and then how do you automate stuff? What do you do that's currently on paper? Your point there about forms, I don't want to fill out forms. You should know me. Most of the other applications that I use, it remembers all of my details on my phone.
Exactly.
It can pre-fill it. I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
So, and AI will kind of take that to the next level. So AI knows where I drive, where I live, how many kids I have. It'll kind of help to pre-populate my thinking.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, and you are one of those dealers that is looking to set up things in motion, you can create a journey where you're having a conversation, a pre-visit conversation, where you get all those details in a conversation like we are having, and the AI listen and pre-populates the form for both the customer, but for you as well. So there's no more keying on systems and let's spend 20 minutes filling in this form and could you sign here. It's all about a personalized, let's have a virtual catch up and we'll get all the admin done, but in a conversation. It feels natural. We're strengthening our relationship. We're building rapport. But in the background, I have an AI assistant that takes 70% of the pain of the admin away from me.
Yeah.
And that is not something that's going to happen in the future. That's something that's happening today across banks, across insurers, across dealers that are more proactive, across retail. And that's a smart way of saying, yeah, I might not have the ability to pre-populate. I might need that customer interaction, but I'll do it with a phone call or I'll do it over a virtual call. And I am going to get that done before they step in and before they commit to something so the admin can take care of itself.
Yeah, the admin in dealership world is painful. I think there are so many things that my partner went to look for a car recently, and the guy was, bless him, he was quite old school, but he got a piece of paper and a pen out, and I was like, he did what? No. He literally sat down with a piece of paper and a pen. It's like, that's just, like you say, most people are kind of populating forms as they talk to you, and they're trying to fill it in with you, or the customer has already done it online because they've already valued what they're currently driving, and they're looking for the next thing.
Exactly.
So most of that data is there. It just needs to be
validated a little bit.
Exactly.
And therefore, you're okay to just confirm that this is still correct and accurate. But I'm not okay to spend half an hour with you filling forms.
Yeah.
And what's worse is that sometimes I find organization, and it's not just in automotive, it's a little bit more pervasive than that. But I find organizations still tend to think in, I'm going to sell, I'm going to service, this is my insurance and the claims, and they tend to be siloed, they tend to be verticals on their own right, and they optimize within that vertical, which is not bad. But I also think the customer behavior is not that way. I want to go and I want to choose a car and I want to, choose all my add-ons. I want my insurance, and yes, I want the alloy and the tire, and let's have a service. I don't want me to have to tell you how often I need to service my car. And I want you to advise me and to say, look on your previous pattern and at your trends and the mileage that you do. We recommend this sort of service and this sort of insurance, and don't worry about it. It's like insurance, you just come on my app, you come on my platform, you're dealing with me, irrespective of who the underwriter is. And I just want a one house for that relationship to sit in.
Yeah.
And I want somebody to think of my worst case scenario and plan for that. There's nothing worse than me breaking down on a motorway, having to call a third party. I don't want to deal with a third party. I want to deal with my dealer, my regional. I came in and saw you. I looked you in the eye. We have a relationship. Can I call you? Is there an in-car service? And if it's not an in-car, is there an in-app service? And what's your responsiveness? Could you commit that within an hour or two, somebody's going to come and have my back? And can you plan for my worst case scenario, please? Because that's how you get repeat business and trust and value beyond what a manufacturer could do.
Yeah. So what you're describing there very much is tech and humans hand in hand. So it's all about, so one of the things that I think people are terrified by is AI is going to replace me. And I think it's going to replace certain tasks that you do. Like you mentioned, you can have a conversation and the AI can be capturing the pertinent details that you need in that document. But also, I'm still going to want to buy from people. Agreed. And but I do quite a lot of research online. But when I go in, trust and transparency is really important. I had a really good experience when I bought my car recently. And it was with the person that spent time with me, helping me to set it up. We sat in the car for a bit and then we kind of got it all working. But I did a lot of research and I knew what I wanted. So it made that a bit easier. So just sort of coming back then, because you've described taking like the language and then pulling data, but obviously large language models, so LLM, OpenAI were the forefathers of ChatGPT. So OpenAI.
AI.
So just explain a little bit about, because you were involved with the really early iterations, and I think it's a really incredible, they've kind of created OpenAI in a way that is really accessible. They're not monetizing it all, they make it accessible to anyone to use as a free level, so you can just like dabble around in it. And it's been a really helpful resource. My kids are just coming out of university, setting up their own websites and profiles, and so it's been a great source of help me, how do I do this? And it can just go da 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 da, and it just like pulls it out. But just walk through the early stages, because you were involved with OpenAI at ChatGPT version 2, and we didn't get it until version, 3.5?
3.54, yeah. So I had the privilege of helping be a little bit more where the responsible AI had. So when the models were being built and developed, there were a few foundational questions. One of it is, how is this model learning? From what authoritative data sources? Which data could we trust? And which data it's okay? But which data it's not okay? And it was a fundamental question about that data sources that the model would connect to and learn from. Beyond that, there was an area of prompting. Which questions should the model help you answer versus which questions the model shouldn't help you answer? And there were a lot about, health and medical advice and investment advice. And there's a gray area, right? The equivalent on maybe a self-driving car, it's a scenario where, there's no way we're going to have a collision. Which one do I protect? Do I protect my passenger or do I protect the pedestrian, right? And in OpenAI, it was like that. Which question should we answer? Which question should we know? How do we constrict the model?
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, and the fun bit, and this is the bit that everybody can still get involved to and do it, but they don't realize they could. So ChatGPT has this function where you go a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So you get an answer and you get the opportunity to say, yes, thank you, that I like this answer. Or you get the opportunity to put a thumbs down, and optionality is just either a thumbs down and nothing else, or a thumbs down and you get to put a comment to why are you dissatisfied with that answer. I paid countless of hours and weeks and months in that world, because what that's doing behind the scene is training the brain of the model to really understand the context of a prompt, to understand that when I say a particular thing, tell me X about this thing, it's not necessarily what you mean and the answer that you want, right? Mm-hmm. Because we all use language slightly nuanced and different. So you can do it today. You can actually spend the millisecond of giving it a thumbs out or a thumbs down, and the model would learn from that. Will say, this area of how I generate context is not quite right. A lot of my users are dissatisfied. And that would make OpenAI put on the roadmap an area of further refinement and enhancement and,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so I see the thumbs up and thumbs down.
Know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's like,
so you could actually be playing an active part just by making that a habit to say, yeah, that was good, thanks. No, that wasn't good. No. And then somebody behind there would be an ML engineer, a prompt engineer, there will be a data scientist. They'll be looking at that and over regional, maybe it's a region, a specific country, or maybe there's a particular type of subject, and they will enhance it further for all of us.
That's amazing. So I have like I've got a few ChatGPT conversations going on on the sidelines, because the way that my brain works is I'm very much a mind mapper. I kind of really, I get inspired by things and I go, and I coach people as well. So often in coaching, we'll explore options. One of the processes in coaching is you explore options. So we can literally
outside
work
in
through
and inside out.
Exactly. What could you do? And then you think about like matching skills to different jobs. And because my boys are now at that age where they're looking at what their careers could be, we sort of think about, well, what else could you apply? Like one of them does music, one of them does film, and there's so many different applications of film. The worry for the film industry, of course, is that AI is going to replace people like film creators. And I think there are ways where AI will do that, but you can't. Some of the individuality, you couldn't AI someone like Quentin Tarantino. I mean, he's got such a unique way of thinking about things. Well, there are some directors that they wouldn't be replaced. You hope not, because you want to make sure that you've got individuality of thought, but it can certainly enhance like the end product in the way that it's produced. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. I always have this view of the future where AI works in service of humanity. There will be things that we value more than... The AI will always have the ability and capability to do more and to do everything, or to do even more than we currently do. But the thing that fundamentally overrides anything about AI is that it acts in service of humanity. So I imagine a future for the film industry where we'll have a lot of AI assistants doing a bunch of tasks and end-to-end and generate videos and scenarios and scripts or even mini short films or full-blown films, but they have to be in service of somebody's vision, someone's music, someone's creating a flow. So yeah, maybe there will be an AI director that will always follow because, oh my God, they're generating these quirky new things. But there will always be human-centric as well, a world where human centricity continues to live and thrive and enhance. And it's the same in business. There will be business that will be augmented with AI, helped by AI, enabled by AI. But there will be businesses that will be totally transformed and revolutionized by AI. And we have to start planning for a world that will become real 10 and 20 years from now, but a world that we want. So that the AI that we shape, the services and solution, work in service for us.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned when we kind of chatted about what we could talk about today, so you've talked about, and now I know how to train the AI bot by just giving it a thumbs up, thumbs down. I didn't know that. Seriously, I feel like I've not been very good to ChatGPT. Sorry, I'll work harder. And then some of the other sort of big ideas that are coming that really, I mean, tragically, my mother passed away quite early because of a genetic cancer, which we've all been tested for, but the technology wasn't good enough to be able to track whether or not we've got the cancer gene or not. But actually now, some of the applications of AI, of some of the technology, is going to be things like how you can start to have early health markers. So how do you track changes in bloods or whatever it might be. So I think some of those applications, as you're mentioning, AI will be in service of humans and how we can start to really augment what we do and how we can deploy it. I think that's one of those incredible applications that the human eye couldn't track where the fault was in the gene, but AI probably could. So with a genetic fault, usually it will happen at a certain part in the genome. And then if there's a fault in a parent, then you'll find it in exactly the same place in a child. So it really helps to track whether or not you're at risk of developing that particular cancer, because it can say, yes, you have the gene, no, you don't. So you can either get on with your life or we need to monitor you more closely. Just things like that, I think, are really incredible sort of developments. Because you mentioned, just talk a little bit more about what else we think is coming apart from things like health applications or other stuff.
Yeah. So across, let's take health because we started with that, and it's unfortunate that the technology wasn't there for your mom, and I hope that it evolves fast enough to actually eradicate cancer in our lifetime and all types of cancer. We've seen unbelievable, tremendous use cases increase from not only genome, molecular sized analysis, but preventative care, and not just from the ability of AI agent or AI solution to analyze where if you have that particular gene, but now it's able to read your wearables, how your sleep data, your exercise, your body movement data. Maybe you might record a specific training pattern that you strength train twice a week and you run once a week and play badminton once a month, and it's able to analyze that and say, yes, you have that predisposition, but your current lifestyle behaviors are aligned to minimize that risk. So continue on this path. Or it might be able to say, having looked at your wearables data and analyze it, we feel that a little bit more movement or a little bit more sleep or the quality of your sleep is not quite good enough. And over time, if it accumulates, this is the sort of impact it could have on your stress factors, your body stress, and it could activate that gene. It would make it more likely. So it goes beyond just, do I have it, do I not, and leaving you in limbo to worry about it. It starts actually saying, but if you tell me more about you, if I have access to more about you, then I'll do that. It's an area I'm deeply passionate because in my family history, we have all sorts of cancers and diabetes and more, obesity and all sorts of conditions. And I have created my own solution where I tell my AI model a lot more. I give it access to my wearable data. I do privately, maybe twice or 3 times per week, like a really in-depth blood analysis with like 70 markers, and I feed it in the model. And I do lots of other stuff like that the model starts to learn about me and what I'm interested about, but keeps an eye on stuff that I could be blinded towards. Hey, I'm worried about diabetes, but hey, there's a pattern here. Your inflammation scores over the last 3 blood tests are on an up. So you have an underlying go and, so
eat less of that.
Yeah,
drink more of this.
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
So that's in health, but it goes beyond what we are seeing. We are seeing a lot of the leading health organization focusing on preventative care. And I love that because it's no longer about trying to cure when something was diagnosed. The market is shifting towards how do we work with you, with wearables, with connective devices, with our IoTs, and everything in your life to actually prevent or to have earliest warning indicators to help you, quickly get rid of something.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of the financial markets waking up to the need of creating inclusive, personalized, tailored solutions. So it's not about let's have an ISA or a saving account. And they're starting to think about customer lifetime, and they're starting to create models that you can go in and literally with 3 drop downs, you can get a personalized long-term investment. So they're asking stories, what sort of retirement would you like to have? How often would you like to travel? Where would you be? What about your social life? And you dream big about your future.
Yeah.
And suddenly they start optimizing how you invest today to be resilient for that.
Yeah.
And I love nothing more than when the industries kind of wake up to the need of going beyond the transactional and buy for today and think about a future me, a better me.
So thinking about that then, I mean, mobility is a service in our industry. So I don't want to just have an ISA or a savings account. Similarly, you could say you don't need to have one car.
Exactly.
You can just have the car that you want when you need.
Circular automotive industry. Let's talk about that.
Let's
Jackie.
do it. Yeah. But mobility as a service kind of came and then it all kind of went with COVID but I think actually now people are thinking more about, I need a solution to get me from A to B. I don't want to. And Sarah, in an earlier episode, she actually uses, she'll use the health services where she'll just use the car for when she needs it rather than having it sitting on the driveway the entire time. So how can we think about, in terms of using all of that thinking in automotive? Because we know we have listeners from OEM brands, from retailers, from fintechs, who are all thinking, how can we use AI more to create that, how we can become customer obsessed and how we can start to use AI to provide the most intuitive experience for customers or for humans? I'd love to kind of think about what's possible.
I like that. If it was me, I would have a short-term, a medium-term, and a long-term sort of vision. And I would start outside in a futuristic, dream big, think destruction, a future of humanity that 50 and 100 years from now will have totally different consuming behaviors in the automotive space.
Yeah.
Think about self-driving cars and you hop on, hop off. Think about, electrified motorways, all green. And how do you sustain a future when that is? Who are your buyers? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the government? Who buys that sort of service? How do you monetize that? So I would always like industries to think in 50 to 100 years from now and have a transition plan towards that. How do I monetize? How does a financial transaction? Who are my customers? Because for certain, it's not going to be me or you. It's going to be either our employer or a government or a sort of incentivized scheme. So if that's changing, what are you doing for that? And how are you shaping it? How do you influence the future designers and the orchestrator to create a future when you still have a viable business model? So think about that. And then I would have a medium term when I would start saying, okay, so if that's in the future, 10 to 20 years from now, people are going to look at this sort of assets as very disposable. I don't want to be locked in a financial service agreement for the next 3 to 5 years, paying you 500, 700 pounds per month for a car that stays parked 3 days per week in my driveway. What I want as a consumer is I want to monetize that car. I want to be able to, in your app, maybe publicize the fact that Tuesday and Thursday my car is available. It's at this address. You insure it. Somebody comes. They have a key. They drive it. They park it. Not my problem. Use it as a rental car. Make me money out of it. And then we have a different sort of financial agreement with you, because my car, it starts bringing me money. It's not taking money out of my banking account every month, right? But thinking about monetizing it for your customer, educating your customers on how you can unlock financial value from that asset as a family, it's what organizations should be doing now. And if there are dealers who are not thinking that way, they're starting to already be behind the curve and trends, because people would want to lease per hour, per day, per half a day. And if I own it and I still buy it and I transact with you, how do you make me money out of it?
Yeah.
Not how I make you money out of it, right? So starting shaping to that sort of behavior and demand from customers who want money out of their assets. And in the short term, it's about efficiency and business intelligence. It's finding what sells, who buys, what parts do you need to service most, behaviors. It's about contextual insights, rich insights that might be able to generate you the return customer, that might be able to generate you additional income from your financials deals with your insurers, with your service company, with your roadside assistance, monetizing it differently.
So there's lots of things. I mean, actually, dealers, as you're speaking there, thinking about whether my car is sitting there on my driveway, there's also a load of stock sitting in dealer forecourts not being used. So actually, could you unlock, and 2/3 of it, Oana, probably isn't even advertised. So we know as well, just from looking at our own data, that there's dealers have stock, not all of it's even advertised for sale. And some of it could be because it's not ready to be marketed fully. But again, you can use AI to enhance the image, show that it's coming soon. And if there's a lot of interest on that vehicle, bump it up the chain of when it's going to be refurb, ready for resale, or you'll move that one forward because that's a really hot car. But oftentimes it's not even advertised. There was one in the Sofas episode, they were saying that actually when they look at web traffic analytics, the browsing behaviours have shifted from brand websites more to stock locator. So people are looking for the thing and how quickly they need it to be delivered. So they'll be flexible on colour or spec because they need it now and that's my budget and that thing fits my budget and I'm okay with it being not quite.
But I want to pick it from within this range, and it has to be regional to me and in availability.
Yeah.
And that's such a missed opportunity because, as you said, AI, data and AI are such an enabler nowadays on being able to generate video or marketing content or update your website pretty much in real time. As you are bringing a car in, there are some dealers that all they have to do is put the VIN number. Yeah. And then suddenly it generates like a manufacturer style video of the car. And then you put a couple of caveats. Yeah, it has 20,000 miles and this is the cost. And then you can update it with real pictures later if you so want to. But at least it's there and it's active and it resides on your product catalog just by default. So that's a missed opportunity about intelligent stock management. I also find a little bit of friction in servicing, like knowing about parts, which parts, and you take your car in and you drop it in and I don't have the part, I have to order it. Why? Why is that still something that exists nowadays?
I know.
Because with a data and AI-enabled solution, that stock optimization, by the time I book my appointment, you will know if you have the part. And if I don't have the part, don't get me to bring my car within a week. Right?
No.
Say your availability, it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So by the time I give it, I have a same-day service. And to me, it feels like a same-day service, right? But in the background, you can mask a lot of the stock availability with a data and AI-enabled solution. You know what? I'll go even and say it doesn't even have to be AI-enabled.
No.
Data-enabled solution. Like, honestly.
We have it. I mean, we do have it now. So actually we have now, and this is where we're talking about, like, I suppose there's data and AI, or there's data integrations. So we know, and I was explaining to my partner how the system works now, is that you have lots and lots of data that we pull down from the OEM's space. So you know from the service intervals, it's published when the vehicle is manufactured, what the service intervals are. I was saying to him, what you can now see coming is in the application, in my car, syncs with my phone, so it knows what my mileage is. So when I book it, like you say exactly, if I've done X number of mileage, the data is already there about which parts should be replaced at certain times. So if the hose is likely to burst at 100,000 miles, not that I've ever got that far with a vehicle, but replace it at 90 or 95. So you know it's not going to happen to me while I'm in the car. So things like that, we do already have the data. And actually now we're getting to a point where the consumer can book their service online. And by the time it lands in the dealership, it's with the right technician, with the right parts, at the right time. So everything that technician needs to do to service your car is where it is.
And how amazing would it be if you could call me before a sensor in my car alerts me? Because if you can have access to the car sensors data, you could proactively call me and say, we noticed a trend, you are about to XYZ. We reckon that in about a couple of weeks, you'll get a warning about this sensor. Before you do, or let's book it now because we are, and I would feel like, wow, you're proactively caring about my safety and well-being, even before the car alerts me I have a problem, right? And you say, no, you're likely that sensor will switch on, it will hit that based on your driving mileage and patterns, we reckon in 2 weeks. So let's book it in. How about week 3 because it's not urgent, or week 4? But then how cool it would be if the sensor does ping and it reinforces and validates that trust and that ability to say, how proactive of my dealer to do that. And not only that, but do it on a same day. So I drop it in and then I pick it up, minimum disruption. Even better, come and pick it up for me and just
do it on my driveway.
And do it on my driveway. You liaise with all the insurers. And if you can't do it on my driveway, leave me a car of equal value that I drive in and says, Missy, don't worry, I'll come and pick it up. I'll leave you a car. I'll bring it up either in a day or 2. But you're driving pretty much the same make, the same model. Why do I have to drive it to you? Why do I have to meet you where you are? Why can't you meet me where I am? So
I think that's the bit where AI, so rather than having someone ring you, the AI agent can ring you and it can start to notify you. I think that's the bit where the sensor will inform the bot, which informs your application, or if you haven't responded in the app, you'll get an email because it's all connected and you have when you log it in, you have an email to log it in. So it's telling you in a number of different ways, if you haven't responded, I'm going to tell you again, we think you need to come in, blah, 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 or this is going to be replaced. So again, you feel looked after. So this car is making sure that I'm okay.
I would, if I wanted to talk about the personal experience, it would be about the nirvana of dealerships for me would be having an agentic AI in service of your operations. So the way it would feel to me as a customer, it's that I would get sort of a notification, something about my car, a service, a regular update, a maintenance, and I would go in the app and I would start interacting with that AI agent in the same way I would interact with ChatGPT. But imagine ChatGPT enabled by 100 tools and loads of processes and loads of decisions at the back that the agent can take in real time. Mrs. Beattie, we noticed that. I think it's due for a service. Would you like me to book it? Yes, I would. Okay, I have availability. Mrs. Beattie, do you have a preferred date? Yes, I do. Has to be a Saturday, ideally in the afternoon. Okay, looking at that, let me book it. Why not enable an agent to do that with me and book it and get it done? And Mrs. Beattie, would you like me to send someone to pick the car for you? Would you like I noticed you are entitled to a replacement car. Should I have them drop a replacement car for you? And I would say, yes, please. And why can't it be? It's all about seamless, frictionless interactions. And how about that AI, sort of agentic AI in service of your dealership, being able to do anything from parts, service, customer operations, checking in, proactive enablement, but making me feel that I'm truly understood and truly listened and heard in the process. And it's all about, customer sentiment and sentiment analysis. And
We are seeing some of that now. I mean, we're looking at how chat, just like live chat is really good, but they're much better now than when it used to be. You could tell it was a bot, and it would even tell you, like, I'd try and use services like online or banking or government or whatever, and it's a bot, and I just kind of go, speak to a human, because I want to speak. If it doesn't answer my question quickly enough, sometimes I will get the answer I'm looking for, and I'm like, great, thank you very much. And what we now see in automotive particularly is when people inquire about a vehicle for sale, it can actually start to filter through like those stock things that we were talking about. How do you make sure that if that vehicle is sold, it can find other similar looking things that are within my budget?
Within price range.
Yeah, exactly.
Make recommendations. Yeah. And imagine something like that, like a chatbot, but not a first iteration, like a chatbot fueled by GPT, like large language models that feels very human and personalized, that has some sort of agency in terms of next best action. You've defined what that good looks like and it does it. And now imagine it that it's connected within your systems, within your operations, and can trigger an insurance claim or a tire repair on behalf of a customer, can trigger a service, can trigger that. So it goes beyond just being customer facing, but it's both customer and internal operation enabled to be able to take that action within a constrained and very well defined do this but don't do that, or escalate to a human if this happens.
And you can set the rules, can't you? So we obviously operate globally, and we have some markets where you have to by law change your tyres seasonally.
Yeah,
obviously
winter tyres.
Exactly, not the same here because we barely have a winter, but and people can't drive in the snow. but things like that, you can actually set the rules. So at certain times of the year, trigger certain actions. And that's where machine learning or AI can really start to support the human running the business, because you can say, well, I want to trigger this event at this time for all of my customers, or anyone that's booked their concierge service, we will treat them first. So that you can set rules that will kind of really accelerate experience.
You know how we were talking earlier on at the chat about calls and agents, sales agents or customer agents, and being able to understand the numbers of calls you're likely to take and the seasonality and how many agents should you have available. If I reflect on that and translate it, AI agents are 24/7, 365 times per year. They have a flat rate of cost per operations, right? They need some data, they need some compute power, but there's a flat cost that you can predict, and they are there all the time. They don't go sick, they don't need annual leave, there's no seasonality, and you can easily stand up X amount of these agents. You can have 50, 100, 200 of them running different parts of your operations. And I think if I was an automotive executive, if I were running a network of dealers, I would think about a workforce that has a core of human core, and with some agentic AI execution to take the cost and to drive some efficiency out, but also to simplify, to remove friction from a customer perspective. And I would optimize it and then refine it over between now and the next 3 to 5 years. But that human and agentic AI mesh of services and solutions, it's where I would be probably investing and thinking about now, today.
Okay, that's the most amazing. That's a real kind of soundbite there. So actually, as you're shaping out your business, have as many agents as you need to service the customers, because we think there are so many customers that don't get the calls. And you mentioned earlier on, actually, Oana, about how we can trigger like the next thing. So not only servicing, but actually then when the next vehicle might be.
Exactly.
If you've looked after me in the journey, I'll buy from you again, because it's really easy for me and I want you to do everything for me because I just don't have the bandwidth to think about it. So there's some really powerful takeouts from that.
Yeah.
But listen, I think what would be great for anyone that hasn't seen you speaking, we're going to have your keynote at our event, which is going to be great. But I think this is one topic that we're going to just have to keep revisiting. So hopefully you'll come back again when you've been.
I would be delighted to. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. So we're going to wrap up our main episode this week with Oana Beattie, who has been the most incredible and insightful guest from Kyndryl. So thank you so much. Next time, we're going to have some outtakes and also some myth busting. So in the next episode, listen for that. We're going to start to break down some of the myths around AI and what you can do about it. Wow, Oana, that was an amazing way to wrap up this week's episode, all about AI. So thank you again for joining us on the Drivetime podcast. So once again, Oana Beattie, VP AI and Data from Kyndryl.
Thank you.